Oh, here we go. Looks like we're live now. So welcome to today's virtual town hall. I'm Bill Persinger, Executive Director for Public Relations and Marketing, and I'll be serving as your moderator today. I do have a few housekeeping items to share with you before we begin. These sessions are being recorded and will be made available on the university's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages. We'll begin with a broad overview that may cover many of your questions. I will present previously submitted questions to President White and the senior leadership team. To ask questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen so that we may present them to the group. If we cannot respond to all questions prior to the allotted time, we'll post questions and provide answers, if possible, on the university's social media outlets mentioned previously as soon as possible after this session. Now with us today, I have the senior leadership team, which is comprised of Dr. Alisa White, the president of the university. If y'all wave your hands as I introduce you. There's Dr. White. Dr. Rex Gandy, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. Dr. Eric Norman, Vice President for Student Affairs. Mitch Robinson, Vice President for Finance and Administration. General Ron Bailey, Vice President for External Affairs. Dr. Carol Clark, Assistant Vice President for Community and Government Relations. Danielle Whiteside, Vice President for Legal Affairs and Secretary to the Board, along with Donovan, her son. Gerald Harrison, the Athletics Director, and that is the senior leadership team. In addition to them, we also have Michael Kazitz, Assistant Vice President for Public Safety and Chair of the APSU COVID-19 Task Force, as well as Sydney Hawkins, President of the Student Government Association. At this time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Alisa White and President Sydney Hawkins to give you opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Persinger. Hi, everyone. I want to start by saying how happy I am to be here with you all virtually. If there's one thing that I miss about our campus, it is the day-to-day social interaction, and I hope that we're able to get a glimpse of that throughout today's town hall meeting. I hope that you all are able to get the answers to the questions that you've submitted, but I also hope that we're able to feel the friendliness and love that we normally feel on our campus online today. I'm continuously praying for everyone's safety and that everyone is able to finish their semester strong academically, emotionally, and mentally. Lastly, I want to send an early congratulations to the MAKE graduates. The resilience that is within each of you has allowed you to work hard towards this goal, despite everything that's going on. I commend each of you for your continuous hard work and dedication to earning your degree. I am confident that this experience will only contribute to your ability to excel in the career that you have chosen for yourself. I would now like to introduce our president of Austin P, Dr. White.
Thank you, President Hawkins. I would like to just say everything she said and be done with it because Sydney, you just expressed my heart. So thank you for your leadership and your care and concern for the campus community, all of the campus community members. So thank you, students, for joining us today. I'm really happy to have this opportunity to connect with you, but I'll tell you, I miss you. As you know, I live on campus and walk to my office, and I've been walking around campus and then trying to see students who might still be coming to use the food services, and I just miss the liveliness. I love those smiles and some of those hugs that I've gotten over the last few years. And it's just not the same without you. I know you're working hard. I also know that those of you who are graduating do have some questions for our folks who are involved with commencement specifically, but I also want to offer my congratulations and say you have really worked hard over many, many years, not just the last semester. And getting ready to cross that finish line brings its own stress, even under the best of circumstances and the best conditions. And so I just want to give you my heartfelt congratulations because you stuck with it and you're crossing the finish line and you're not letting anything this semester keep you from your goals. And I applaud you for that. And those same characteristics that you displayed this semester will make you successful for the rest of your lives. And I can extend that to all the students today. So you're going to hear from some other members of the senior leadership team. And the reason I have them all here is because we all oversee different pieces of the university and have different portfolios. And I wanted to make sure that you heard from those who are the closest to those particular issues that you wonder about. And you also heard that Michael Cassets, Assistant Vice President, is leading our COVID-19 task force. That is a group of anywhere from 27 to 33 people who represent a lot of areas on campus, including faculty. We have a nurse, we have a virologist on that task force. We have the head of our health clinic. We also have people from the faculty, deans, physical plant, information technology. So it's a very broad-based group of people who meet on a daily basis to make recommendations about how we should go forward through not only this pandemic, but to set us up for the future. I also asked General Bailey, our Vice President for External Affairs, to lead a smaller group to help us do more long-range planning, because we don't know how long we're going to be dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. And so General Bailey's team is working on what options we would have even for the next 2 years. Some of the questions that you have, we don't have answers for at this time. We are scientific people, and we're really looking at data to determine how we should inform you of risks and opportunities, how we should plan for return to campus, and then how we can help you get through the challenges that you're facing right now. So please be patient with us as we determine the best steps to take as we get new data from the state, from the federal government, from our own area of Montgomery County, in terms of how the virus is spreading, what we can do to mitigate its spread, and take care of our community. I am totally committed to your health. I want you to succeed in school, but I want you to be healthy physically, healthy emotionally. I want you to get through this situation as strong as I know you are, and know that you've got our support to do so. So with that, I'll turn it back to Mr. Persinger and ask him to begin sharing your questions, and he'll toss it to whoever's got expertise in that area.
Thank you, President White and President Hawkins. So yes, we're now going to move to the pre-submitted question portion of this webinar. And the first one is actually one I'm going to direct to Dr. Gandy that relates to fees. I'm sorry, not fees, to pass-fail. And so the question is, if I choose to take pass-fail for only one of my classes, would that affect my GPA? I have a 4.0 GPA.
The answer is no. If you switch to pass-fail this particular semester, whether you pass or fail that course, it will not go into your GPA. That's a special, normally before COVID, obviously if you had passed that course, it would not have counted in GPA, but if you had failed that course, it would have counted. But for COVID, this particular semester, if you switch to pass-fail, it will not impact your GPA. However, what you do need to know is that if you are in a particular career path, say you're pre-med and you want to go to med school, if that course is a course that is required for med school, you should really talk to your academic advisor and the professor teaching that course to find out if a pass, assuming you pass the course, will be sufficient to let you continue on your career path, because that is outside our control. Whether Vanderbilt Med School will take a pass in a particular course is for admission is not something we can control. So you would be able to switch to pass-fail and not be impacted on your GPA, but there are considerations beyond Austin Peay that you really need to thoroughly discuss those type of issues with your academic advisor before you make them. And you have about 2 more weeks to make that decision.
And what is the cutoff date for that decision? You said about 2 more weeks. Do you know?
I believe it's May 6th.
Okay, thank you. The next questions relate to commencement, and so I'm going to direct it to Dr. Carol Clark. And so I'll start with the first question. Will APSU be doing anything special for their graduating seniors that missed out on their senior toast and other senior activities?
So Bill, thank you for that. I know there's a couple of questions related to commencement. And if it's okay, let's go ahead and address both of those together.
Okay. So the second question is, has a decision been regarding when the May commencement ceremonies will be held?
Okay, thank you so much. Well, one of the roles that I enjoy at Austin P very much is the role of chairing the commencement committee. And every year, 3 times a year, we look forward to seeing our graduates walk across the stage and be recognized for earning their degree. So this year, like President White, I'll be a little sad that we will not be able to do that on campus this May. But I do want the students to know that we are committed to inviting the graduates back to campus when it is safe to do so to participate in a traditional on-ground commencement. At this point, as with many other things, we can't say what date that will occur because we are working with the COVID task force and looking at guidance from the CDC and government agencies and other experts to determine dates that will be likely to be safe for our students, our faculty, staff, and everyone who's involved with that process. We are also engaging with some of our student leaders to get their feedback on the considerations that we will make. And I would look forward to hearing from any other student with inputs or ideas about that. But be patient with us. We will be sending information out. It may be a while before we get that out, but we will notify our graduates in the campus community of alternative commencement dates in enough time for individuals to arrange to travel to campus if they should choose to do so. In the meantime, we couldn't let May the 8th pass without some sort of celebration for the students who are graduating in May. And so our Office of Public Relations has been working really hard putting together a virtual celebration that will feature some photographs that students have submitted, some remarks from the president and some other folks. And that will be posted at noon on Friday, May 8th. And we do encourage all of our graduates to engage with that and share your photographs with us of the celebrations that you are sharing with your family as you celebrate earning your degree. PR will be sending out some additional information about that with some cool social media images that you can use for photographs and videos. And we look forward to seeing you virtually on May the 8th. I know that there was another question also about the senior toast and some other special events. The alumni office organizes the senior toast, and they are planning to reschedule that for a later date. We'll let you know when that will occur. And some of the other traditional celebratory activities on campus, I've seen through emails and so forth that some departments are doing things virtually. Others are waiting on some of the celebrations to see whether to tie that in with the actual time that students would be on campus for commencement. So congratulations. We will be in touch, and let me know if you have ideas.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. The next question I'm going to direct to Mitch Robinson because it relates to fees. Why are we being forced to pay fees for program services like athletics, student activity fees, recreation center, et cetera, when we can't access them due to the coronavirus shutdown?
Well, that's a good question, fair question. But one of the things that we've had to do here in order to provide the services to the online instruction that's being provided is in a lot of those operations. I'll give you an example. We have an individual in our parking and transportation office. Obviously, there's not a lot of parking and transportation activities going on campus. However, that individual was able to work in our help desk area by helping answer the phones and addressing those needs of our online students. We've had several of the other areas that have also been redesignated, reallocated to a lot of other functions to help address online needs of the students and also the faculty and staff. So while the fees are being charged, they're still being used in a a way to help benefit the students, especially as they navigate the online changes to their course delivery. One of the other things I probably need to mention is that over the course of a year, a lot of the expenses related to these functions are spent on a even basis, so that some of the expenses, for example, it was mentioned football, but I believe in general all athletics, a lot of those expenses were incurred last fall and even into the basketball season and into some of the spring sports. So things such as scholarships that are awarded to all of the student athletes. So those are things that are already committed and have already been spent. So that's a very difficult issue to have to go back and not charge those fees because the expenses have already been incurred. So what we do hope for the fall is that some of the face-to-face interaction will be possible. Again, we really don't know at this point in time. And once we do know more information about what we're going to do starting this fall, it'll give us a better point to start having these discussions going forward. But until then, there really will not be any change in terms of how we will be assessing these fees.
Bill,
Yes.
I checked on that deadline for the pass-fail option. It is May 6th.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, the next question I think I'm going to direct to Michael Kazitz and Dr. Norman because it has to do with kind of reopening campus and student safety. So with the opening of the state on May 1st, this submission says, I'm worried people will discard the precautions given to stop a virus that has no known counter. What will be done to ensure the safety of students come fall 2020 and spring 2021 if no counter is found? And I assume by counter they mean an immunization or something like that to stop the virus.
Thank you for that. The first thing, the task force is working hard to figure out when we can come back to campus and to make recommendations to the senior leadership team. We're running risk models to determine how much risk we have versus the reward of coming back from campus. This is not easy. Right now, we're doing it with the known numbers that we have today regarding the number of cases in Montgomery County and the number of cases across the state. But we're not rushing back to campus. And even though the governor has let his stay at home expire, it's important to see what the next couple of weeks are going to do for Montgomery County, for the state, and for the risk models that we run. And the only way we're going to know that is to get numbers when people reintegrate into society. So we're going to have to exercise patience, and we're going to have to figure out what's best for the safety of our students, faculty, and staff. Another factor that we're looking at is what type of personal protective equipment we can get in that time to be able to bring people back to campus, because, you know, most people are going to socially distance just like we're supposed to, but, you know, we need to make sure we have hand sanitizer. We need to make sure that we have masks, and we have to look at our policies to determine, is it best to require people to wear masks when they come back to campus and things like that. So there's all kinds of variables that go into this, and we're working with various people across the community to determine what's best for us. Dr. Norman?
Right. For us, we're certainly looking at the guidance from the state, the federal government, and the CDC. We're lucky in many ways that a lot of our programming was set up to be both on the ground as well as in a virtual medium. So we are making sure that we're following the guidance as it exists today and insofar as our planning in the future. We're looking at a lot of different models and seeing what other schools are doing, while also having a lot of robust discussion here to decide what are some ways we can provide a on-campus experience without large groups, to be able to ground people and connect people and have that type of a experience and relationship without being in as close proximity as we've had in the past. So that will continue to evolve as we get information, but we are already in that motion. So we're hoping that we can return to campus and still be able to provide all those experiences that students expect.
Thank you. The next question, and actually this is the last submitted question I have. I think I'm going to direct to General Bailey and Michael Kazitz again, which is a relevant question to what we just talked about, but may be a little more specific, which is, when will a decision be made regarding the fall semester?
From the COVID-19 task force, which has grown to over 30 people who meet every day, we are working in smaller groups to see what we can do to come back, what the different scenarios are. And so if this happens, then we can do this. And if this doesn't happen, then we have to change. We are looking at having a list of those scenarios to the senior leadership team with recommendations by the end of May, prior to June 1st, so that the senior leadership team can then take that information and make a decision that's best for the university.
Hey, Bill, we're looking, the strategic planning team is looking 6 to 24 months out. We're working off of a timeline of presenting our information to the senior leaders team June 1st. And that's the difference between the COVID-19 team and the strategic planning team is the time continuum that we're operating off of.
Bill, let me jump in there too. I really appreciate the work of the strategic planning team and also the COVID-19 task force. I asked them to present a number of options, scenarios to the senior leadership team by the 1st of June. It doesn't necessarily mean that the decision will be made then. If we have enough data, we'll consider and go ahead and move forward. The point is to make sure that we are very deliberate in preparing to come to campus. And my hope and expectation is that we'll have some sort of on-ground classes in the fall, but I don't know exactly what they'll look like. We've got a lot of creative minds looking at how those classes can be offered in a way that protect the campus community. If data come in that show that that's not possible, then we'll adjust our thinking. But I've asked for these scenarios to be built and these models to be built, and then give us some if-then statements, so that if we have data that points to X, then we know that Y is an appropriate option. And so we'll be looking at those points and those scenarios and options in June, and then we'll be able to announce as soon as the data are sufficient to make the appropriate decision.
Thank you. So that concludes the pre-submitted questions I have, and I'm going to move now to the live questions that we've received since we began. The first one is related to fees. So Mr. Robinson, I'm gonna direct this one to you. Will the original additional fees associated with online classes be enforced or waived, since going into the classroom is no longer an option now?
The original fees associated with the online classes are still going to be charged. The ones that were scheduled for on ground will not have that associated fee charged to them. Apparently there was no time in order to make that adjustment. And so again, those that were originally scheduled to be face-to-face will not have the online fee, but those that were originally scheduled to be online will have that fee.
Thank you. We have another, a tuition-related question. So I think this is another one for you, Mr. Robinson. Can a tuition payment plan be considered and possibly put in place for this upcoming semester, and for those of us who are non-traditional and have no financial aid?
Well, I've checked, of course, and I think everyone probably knows that our installment plan is not available in the summer term, but I have alerted the appropriate people on my staff to evaluate what can be done. And so don't know what's possible, but we'll be looking at that and then be getting back with some more information at a later time.
Mr. Robinson, is that payment plan available in the fall?
It is. It's usually for the main semesters that we operate, the two main.
Thank you. The next question, I think, is an academic affairs related question, so I'm going to direct that to Dr. Gandy. Give me just 1 second here. Well, I'm just going to have to read the whole, there's a statement and then a question. In some of my classes, education given by the instructor stopped immediately upon closing of campus. I've effectively been denied any education outside of reading a book for myself and getting questions answered in a timely fashion. How is APSU going to address the gap between what I paid for and what was given?
I need that student to email me immediately, gandyr@apsu.edu. That is totally unacceptable. Even though we moved to online, you're supposed to get a quality education. So if I can get the student's name and the course, I'll start working with the dean to make sure the total education that student paid for is rendered.
Thank you, Dr. Gandy. So the next one I think is for you as well, Dr. Gandy, regarding pass-fail. Is there any way to take pass-fail off? I guess this is a VA student and may end up having to pay for it.
Would you repeat the question?
Well, I think they make a comment, and part of the question, it says, I think it's indicating that they're a VA student and they may have to end up paying for a class possibly. I'm not quite sure. But the question is there a way to take the pass-fail off?
If the student enrolled for a class that gets the regular A, B, C, D, F grade, that is still on. Only the student by positive action can switch that to pass-fail. So we didn't switch any classes for the students without their consent, where they have to go online and move that class to pass-fail. But again, I'll tell the student, like I mentioned earlier, they shouldn't do that without fully consulting their advisor, because certain career paths in the future require certain grades in certain classes. So a P may not be what you need down the road. So please discuss all that switching from letter grade to pass-fail with an academic advisor before you do that.
Thank you. It looks like the next question is one for Dr. Norman. It says, as a new member on SGA, Student Government Association, what are some things that we can do for our campus, our community, and the upcoming freshmen to promote positivity and just helpful knowledge?
Great question. Right now, we are looking at introducing a campaign to address that. I could certainly reach out to her, and I have a pretty close contact with Student Government Association. So we can certainly take her action and interests and put that to good work. But it is something we're very cognizant of. We want to make sure students, when they come here, they do have that amazing experience that we have to offer. So we will continue to work on that and make sure that that is in place for the fall, regardless of what medium we're in.
Thank you. The next one is I'm not sure whose area this is. And I think it's in reference to Pharos, the printing. Mitch is waving his hand. So y'all can see. Okay, so can I cash in the money on my ID card that was used for printing?
Okay, that's a good question. One of the things that we have done came through as a request to be able to carry forward any unused print allocation from the spring semester to the fall semester. So not sure what the actual value of unprinted jobs are, or the unprint, what you haven't used on your ID card. But I think it's only continuing students that it allows to carry forward. However, it would also apply to anybody that's graduated too. So I would have to do some investigating to actually see if it were to be possible to be able to look and see what a graduating senior, for example, would have left on their ID card, and then whether it would be something that could be refundable to that graduate.
Thank you. And I believe the next one is for you too, Mr. Robinson. Will the university keep paying student workers over the semester and over the summer for the students who depend on the student work over the summer to pay bills? As of right now, our last paycheck is slated for May 22nd, and we do not know if we can come back before then or we'll have a paycheck after the 22nd.
Well, it was mentioned earlier, one of the things that we're trying our best is to determine when we can actually get the campus back open and available to all of our faculty, staff, and certainly our students. And one of the things that we have in the summertime is a lot of offices that depend on student help. And in order to be able to use that student help, we do need to be open in a safe environment for our students. And the current federal guidelines actually only goes through the end of this semester. It does not start again in the summer. So the answer to the question is that May 22nd would be the last check. We would hope that we would be in a position to be able to hire those student workers, that they could do the work that we need them to do, starting there soon thereafter.
Thank you. The next question is an academic affairs question. So Dr. Gandy, I'm going to direct this to you. What is being done to ensure that professors are appropriately and fairly adjusting their classes this semester to the online format?
Well, we're working with our distance education unit. Every department has identified a transition point person to help the professors who did not have experience teaching online to transition to teaching online. Our academic department chairs are constantly working with those faculty to make sure they provide a quality education. So again, I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. If you're having, as a student, if you're having any difficulties getting the education that you feel you have paid for and deserve, let me know directly or notify your dean that you're having issues, and we'll do our best to make sure that's corrected.
Thank you. The next one is a CARES Act question. So I believe that would be Mr. Robinson again. Why haven't we received any news on APSU being approved for funding through the CARES Act? Also, has it been decided how the money will be distributed? You're muted, Mitch.
Trouble from working from home. Sometimes it's hard to find that cursor. Thank you, Bill. I can answer the first part of that. We applied for the CARES Act funding on April the 14th, and we got approval to be able to draw down the money related to the first 50% of that money today, as a matter of fact. Once we have determined exactly how that money will be distributed, then we will start the distribution as soon as possible and then draw down the money to cover the expense related to that. I believe there's been several options of how to distribute that money. It does come with certain restrictions. It's not restrictions that we would have put in place necessarily, but restrictions just the same. If a student was entirely enrolled in an online format, they would not be eligible for any of the CARES Act money, nor would any foreign international student or DACA student. So those were some of the restrictions that were placed out there. And then there are various options that are being considered this week about how that money will be distributed. And we would expect it, once that's determined, it would only take a couple of weeks before we get that money out to the students.
Mr. Robinson, to clarify, the federal government has said a student who was previously enrolled in all online classes would not be eligible, right? Not the ones who are enrolled now who were not enrolled in all online classes before. That's the distinction. So the restrictions that Mr. Robinson is detailing are those that are associated with the CARES Act, and they are limitations of the CARES Act. Those are restrictions put in by the federal government. And I know that Provost Gandy has more information on that. Do you want to weigh in, Provost?
Yes, there are restrictions on the who can get the funding put out by the U.S. Department of Education. So we're currently working with our registrar and financial aid office to develop a list of eligible students. All eligible students will receive a check. But the exact amount is to be determined because it depends on the number of eligible students.
Thank you. So the next question, actually I can answer part of this, but I think it's myself and Dr. Carol Clark. Why are some updates being made via social media but not directly to the student body? For example, it was announced on Facebook about virtual graduation ceremony. However, there was no email sent about it. We did send an email about the virtual graduate, or I want to say call it a celebration, virtual celebration, because it doesn't replace commencement. But that was sent out on April 17th to students. So if you didn't get that email, if you could email me directly, persingerb@apsu.edu. You can, I'll check into that to see what's going on there if you did receive it, but you should have received it. But Carol, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, Bill, I'd like to clarify just one point there. The early communication that went out went to the students who had applied to graduate. And the purpose of that communication, and the reason it only went to those students, was to invite those students to submit photographs of their time on campus to be incorporated into the photo montage that Public Relations is putting together. There are additional communications that will go out to the entire campus community over the course of the next 2 weeks, announcing the celebration and then providing ways for other individuals to interact with the celebration and celebrate with our students after it goes live on, or after it's posted on May 8th at noon.
Thank you. And it looks like we have a follow-up question about the pass-fail from the student, the VA student. He says after a few days after switching to pass-fail, he found out that the VA has not authorized it. And can he switch back to the graded system? So can he revert it, I guess, is the question.
I want to thank the Mr. Moody for this question, because I've been cautioning the students who are considering switching about potential grad school or med school down the road, but also there are financial aid implications to switching to pass-fail. So in addition to talking to your advisor, make sure you contact financial aid and find out if that switch could have any implications with regard to your financial aid. We'll work with you every way we can, but we want to make sure you know all implications. With regard to Mr. Moody, again, if you'll just email me at gandyr@apsu.edu. I'll have someone get in touch with you and make sure that you're not negatively impacted by this situation.
Thank you. The next one is a very long statement, I believe. So actually, I'm going to, well, give me just 1 second here.
I got this, Bill.
You got, okay, you've already read it. Sorry.
This is what I do for a living. You need, as I see you're anonymous, that's fine, but you need to go talk to your instructor, explain this situation where you're having some issues. If it's not resolved with your instructor, you need to go to the department chair and explain the situation. If it's not resolved with the department chair, then you need to go to the dean. Then finally, if it's not resolved by the dean, you need to come to me. Now, I know you're here to learn about this subject that you're talking about here, but this is also an important learning experience of how you deal with problems in a large organization. You follow the chain of command. So hopefully it'll get resolved at the 90-some% of these things get resolved at the lowest level. But you need to know that as you have the right to continually move this issue through the system. Remember, you start with your instructor, department chair, dean, and then me.
Thank you, Dr. Gandy. The next question is about graduation ceremony. So will there be a December 2020 graduation ceremony?
At this point in time, it is certainly our intent to have a December 2020 commencement ceremony, keeping in mind that we are always going to have the safety of our students, faculty, staff, and guests front and center, and we'll continue to evaluate that. It's highly likely that large gatherings such as commencements will change in nature somewhat over the next few months as we all are attentive to maintaining proper social distancing and exercising appropriate precautions against the spread of COVID-19. But at this point, we're still planning to have a December commencement.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Dr. Norman, this next one's for you. Part of the APSU experience is community building events. What is the likelihood of student-held events continuing in the fall?
I think we'll continue to have events. The question is, what are they going to look like? And we're still going to have to wait for the guidance on that. But we're trying to have a variety of different events in different places, different means of delivery. So no matter what happens, we've got them set in place. So you'll be directly involved with that, Keto. So you don't really have much of a choice in getting involved with it.
Thank you. Next question, I guess, would be Michael Kazitz. How can I get involved on the APSU crisis team?
Oh, great question, and love to see student involvement there. Please send me an email, KASITZM@apsu.edu, and we'll see about getting you involved. Always love to give people experience and learn from a different perspective. So thank you for your volunteerism.
And Korean's a very forward thinker, so good person to toss on there.
Next question goes back to CARES Act. What if you were an online student, but you worked on campus? I don't know what the specific question, though, is. They say it's in regard to the CARES Act question.
I believe he's asking, will she be receiving aid too?
Receiving a disbursement.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you were only enrolled in online classes, that's all the classes you were taking, that is excludes that student from receiving some of the CARES Act money. So it's not tied to campus work or anything like that. It's all tied to, were you taking just all online classes, and did you then for whatever reason, the federal government has decided that those students would not be eligible for CARES Act money. And it's not tied to employment.
Thank you. The next question is in regards to FAFSA. Do we need to have a FAFSA on file to receive funds?
No.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I lost my question there. What changes has, I'm sorry, let me start over. What changes that APSU has made during COVID-19 will continue after classes resume back to normal in person? For example, will hotspots still be available to students in rural areas?
One of the things that the COVID-19 task force is doing is analyzing our response and our preparation for the next event. So as we look at our continuity planning going forward from this event, we're taking the lessons learned. So we're looking at what type of equipment we have, what type of resources we can make available for students. That way, if we see a resurgence or something else comes up, we'll have those items on hand in order to issue those out and things like that. So we're looking at this holistically. We're looking at what lessons have we learned and how we can apply them in the future to make the experience better and the transitions easier should we have to go to something like this again.
Thank you. The next one is a CARES Act question. So Mitch, I think this is yours. Is the disbursement going to be evenly spread out to all students that meet the criteria?
That decision has not been made yet. That again is some future decision within the next week or two that we're going to make in terms of how that money is dispersed. And there are various options that we're looking at right now. So that might be one of them, but there are many others that we're looking at as well. So again, that decision has not been made at this point in time.
And a related question came up to that. Could the disbursement be given to graduating seniors?
Yes.
Thank you. The next question is about classes and being face-to-face. Even if classes are not going to be face-to-face, when you think extracurricular activities, sorry, I lost my question. When extracurricular activities will become face-to-face and under what guidelines? Also, when you think the buildings like Morgan University Center will be back open. So I think maybe that's a Dr. Norman question.
Right. And honestly, we're still trying to figure that out. As we get guidance and can make a determination when we can move back to face-to-face, we will do so. The union actually is still open at some level. We have students that are still taking classes and are residing in our residence halls. So they're able to use the food court, but we're not doing programming in here currently. So as we are able to do so, we will resume those activities though.
Let me remind everyone too that a lot of the data that we're looking at is statewide data and regional data, national data. And as people exercise good judgment, not touching their faces, washing their hands, trying to maintain that social distance, it is, as long as we see the good trends continuing, even when the restrictions loosen, that'll give us confidence that we can open faster. So when these states and areas stop restricting as much, if people just go back to the way it was, excuse me, I'm going to touch my face because I'm coughing, but excuse me, if they don't maintain wisdom, they don't use the wisdom and the guidance of the CDC, and the numbers start moving higher at a much faster rate again, that's going to slow our return to campus. So do what you can and help us all get the data so that we feel comfortable opening, and just help us all act responsibly so that we can get back to campus.
Thank you, Dr. White. This is a question for Michael Kazitz, what does being a member of the crisis team entail? In other words, roles, responsibilities, etc.
We do have, in addition to the COVID-19 task force, we do have an emergency management committee. That's a standing committee. And basically what is done with those the emergency management committee is to review plans, to make recommendations to improve campus safety and preparedness, and to look at emerging technologies that can assist us in that. You know, the emergency management committee does have multiple students that are on that committee, and of course we welcome anybody that wants to be on there. For the COVID-19, it's looking at the issues brought up specifically from that. So, you know, I originally had hoped that the COVID-19 task force would end on May 6th, but our job is not done because we're going to be having COVID for a long time. It's, from what I understand, it's never going to go away. When we get a vaccine, it will be most helpful, but it's still going to be out there. So, you know, our goal turned, or our charge turned from putting out fires and trying to get off campus to remote learning to non-face-to-face. Now our charge is to get us back to campus using the guidelines from the CDC. So we have a lot of great minds on this that are reading tremendous amounts of information, trying to figure out what's best for Austin Peay. So any help we could get with that regarding COVID-19, we're willing to help. So that's kind of some of the duties and responsibilities of what we do in emergency management.
And another crisis plan question that's for you, Mr. Kazitz. Can we implement part of APSU's crisis plans in the next year's student handbook? For example, there are some students who haven't received updates from the school because they do not have internet.
We can send some information to the student handbook, which would be helpful. One of the biggest problems is we operate off different manuals and different plans. So depending on what we're doing, depends on what plan we use. And if you look at the emergency management plan that we have for the university, it's over 400 pages long. So that's a little bit difficult. What we could do is look at the emergency action plan, which is about 60 pages to publish maybe at the end of the student handbook. That's available on obviously our webpage, but that doesn't help if student doesn't have internet access. So I'll work with student publications on that this summer to see what we can do.
Thank you. This is a scholarship board question, so I'm not sure if that's Mr. Robinson's area or Dr. Norman's area. Is the scholarship board going to convene before fall semester? Or maybe this is Dr. Gandy's question.
I think that's Dr. Gandy's. I'm not sure. Does that sound right?
Well, we plan to give out all scholarships as normal.
Okay, yeah, the question's not more specific, so I think that's all. The next question is about the mobile app, which is there a way for someone to start implementing updates to students in the P mobile app? Actually, my department is in charge of that, and I'll have to check. I noticed that there were not more recent updates today, so I have to follow up on that and see. But yes, we should be sending out notices just like you receive an email in other venues. How do you expect student enrollment to be affected if classes are online in the upcoming semesters?
We're currently about 10% down for our summer enrollment, and we're close enough to the beginning of summer that that looks like that'll be pretty close to that. For fall enrollment, it's earlier. we're about 40% in on fall enrollment. It's also currently down about that same amount. However, there's a much more opportunity for fall enrollment to change because it's late August when we start. So we're going to take every effort we can to get all the students back enrolled and hopefully get them to their back on their degree tracks. So that's where that is.
Well, thank you. That's all the questions we've received. So I'm going to hand it over for any closing remarks Dr. White may have.
Thank you. Thanks to the team for sharing your information and data with the students. Thank you to the students for the great questions. You can tell that there are a lot of unknowns that we're working through, but I feel really confident that as a community that we'll get through it, that you'll get through it. You will be the generation of the one that we'll be talking about for years to come because of how weird this semester was, but how you responded to it. And, your educational attainment is really important because regardless of what happens in this nation, whatever happens to the economy, whatever happens in the health side, the data have been very clear to this point that people with degrees do better economically as a rule than people without degrees. And so I just encourage you to hang in there. Know that your degree is worth something, that it is valuable in itself when you get that course credit and then you get that degree. You are already among the elite in the United States. And so just hang in there. And I look forward to seeing you on campus. And thank you so much for joining us. Let's go P.
Well, thank you, Dr. White. As a reminder, we will be posting these recordings or the recordings of these sessions on our social media sites where additional questions can be submitted. And thank you for joining us today. That ends our session.